name's Chip Walters. Glad to be here. We've been doing this a couple of years, and it's been fun to be in these intimate settings to where you have a chance to talk and ask questions. And tonight, as we go through this, feel free, if you've got something, raise your hand. We'll get your questions in.
But we still have to realize college athletics, it's not just about getting that scholarship or trying to get to the next level. You're trying to create the next best woman or man that's going to go out in society and be a part of this world. So
Yeah, Jill, you were a former Conference USA athlete at East Carolina, and you understand the striving for attention and trying to get yourself up in the pool to where you can reach out and say, hey, take a look here. And I think you understand that.
Yeah, I'm actually really glad I didn't have to play MTSU softball when I was playing, because that might have been another story, and I may not be here right now. No, I think having not only with past experience with Conference USA, but in covering MTSU, I'm a little bit of the newbie here in Nashville. My first day on the job in Fox 17 was the Blue Raider Blitz 2 years ago. I met Coach Stock my first day on the job, and I was like, man, I cannot wait to cover this team and be a part of what felt like a really big family. To kind of circle back to what you're saying, Chip, this is what MTSU has become and has continued to grow is a team that is a program and a university no longer trying to get on the map. It's on the map. The athletics programs have done that the last several years. So now I think MTSU, when I think of MTSU athletics, I think of the team that Power 5 schools not only can't look past, but they're afraid. They know that this team means business. And I think right back to Alabama, obviously Miami, the big win last year, but the schedule this year with football and all the other Power 5 schools, all the programs and athletics teams are facing.
Stock,
how do you get
yes.
these people to still play you guys?
Yeah.
Seriously, like, that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose.
It actually is that there a lot won't play us, and so that's getting more and more difficult is to schedule those games out, and it's so far out. So yeah, that last time we went to Missouri, we had a lot of luck there. Brent was our quarterback, and Richie James, and some of the great players we had. So yeah, over there as well. So we're looking forward to going to Missouri week 2 as well. And the way you guys are sounding, maybe Rick, I should schedule more Power 5.
Stock, the game has changed, or the business of college football has changed since you've been in it nearly, 35, 40 years now. And the changes that you've had to go through in the last couple of years with NIL, transfer portal, the arms race for facilities, what has it made your job like?
Well, obviously, it's changed every coach at every level, their job. And there's certain things that we can't do that, the Power 5 guys can do. And, we worked at Florida State camp down there, and they've got 6 guys that are making over $1 million. We played with Miami, and talking to Kevin Steele, their defensive coordinator, he said we've got 14 guys that make more than 8 of our coaches, full-time coaches. So there's so much money at the Power 5 level. We've got, at the group of 5 guys, we've got to find a way to get our guys something, and it doesn't have to be $100,000 a year. That's not realistic. But if you can get them something to show that you appreciate them and you're out there trying, it's changed. And then the transfer portal has really impacted college athletics, especially football. They're talking about shortening the window of opportunity to be in the portal. Last year it was 60 days. You had 45 days in December to January, and then 15 in the spring. They're talking about cutting 15 days off in December, January to make it 45. That'll help, but still, you think about it, you go through winter workouts, you go through all spring practice, and then you've got spring practice ends, and then you got the next 2 weeks that, you know, you may lose 5, 10 guys, you may not lose anybody. So the roster management of your team, the responsibility that you have is very, very demanding. It's very difficult. But the thing you've got to, you know, and I haven't changed. You know, I'm a relationship guy, and I've always said that leadership is a contact sport. You can't just sit up here and talk about it. Nobody's going to follow you. They've got to feel you. You got to be a touchy guy. You got to, you know, go to the training room, the locker room, the weight room. You got to be around. They got to feel you, and you know, because if you're just going to talk, they're not going to respond to you. They got to know that you care and that you've got a plan to help them be successful. You know, like Dawn and Kayla and Jill, and they all said, you know, not only as men, but to help them reach their goal. Because every one of our guys that we got, they think they're going to the NFL. And in reality, you know, just a couple are.
You wouldn't want them if they didn't think they were going to go.
Two things, you know, if they don't love the game, they don't want to, you know, get to the NFL, you know, go somewhere else. But, you know, so you gotta have a plan to show them that you're helping them, trying to help them reach all their goals, all their dreams, you know, that they have, you know, personally and individually.
Chris, you're czar of college football for a day. How would you handle it?
You know, we're lucky in terms of, I wasn't the biggest Mark Emmert fan out there, and I think Charlie Baker is going to be a really breath of fresh air for everybody involved, and so I think that'll be good to have somebody that a lot of the membership respects in that position. So that's step one, and I really like what he's done. What I would do is provide the transparency for all the NIL deals and make that a requirement and have them report that to a government agency, because I think that's a really big step. Once the IRS and some of these other people kind of get involved, I think that will at least put an open light on it. So things that operate in the shadows, which is what's happening now, I don't think is ever very healthy. So let's shine a light on it. It's here to stay, and let's deal with it.
You guys talk about it every day on your talk shows or on your newscast all the time, and I'll hear Ron Slade, pay the man, pay the man.
Of course.
Of course he says that.
Do you know what Ron Slade would have made back in the day?
Oh, there's no
if
question.
NIL existed when he played basketball? Good Lord.
But you know,
He wouldn't be on the show with us now, that's for sure.
when you all look at it from a media point of view, is sometimes it just taken for granted and they're numbers and it's not real money kind of thing?
Yeah, oh, and I've heard a ton of stories of, you know, this kid was promised this amount of number and then they got to the school and it wasn't anything close to that, and then they're upset and there's rifts in locker rooms. I mean, it's the wild, wild west. It's an absolute mess. And one of the problems I have with all of it, which we've talked about, all of us have talked about it a bunch, but is the high school kids coming out before they've even played a snap in college, and you know they're getting these huge NIL deals that some of them don't end up turning into huge NIL deals. But you know, I can't believe I'm saying this, but actually I agree with Nick Saban. I'm an Auburn girl, by the way. I graduated from Auburn, but no, you know, Coach Saban has his issue isn't with NIL. His issue is the fact that it's basically pay to play when you have some of these high school recruits coming out and they're getting these big NIL deals before they've done anything on the field or academically or at all. They're not a collegiate athlete yet, you know. So that's one of my problems with the whole NIL thing, is that it's not regulated at all. And yeah, you look at the divide between the haves and the have-nots, and it can get bigger. Like Coach was saying, you know, you can't pay a kid $1.5 million to come play at MTSU, you know, and that is happening at some of the bigger schools. So I think that there's more creative ways to kind of equal it out a little bit, and I'll say this about MTSU: you guys have an amazing fan base. You have amazing donors and supporters of this school and this program and this athletic department. I know, I see it all the time. I see my stepson goes to MTSU, he's all in, you know, I see everybody with their MTSU tags and things like that. So I feel like you guys have the support in place to be able to play if there are some better regulations in place. And don't get me started on the transfer portal, but
Yeah,
whatever.
that's a whole different deal.
I'm like, my butt sat on the bench my freshman and sophomore year, and my coach told me I wasn't good enough to play, and then I worked my booty off, I got a scholarship, and then I got to play, and I didn't transfer and go somewhere else. But that's a different story. I'm experienced. But anyway, go ahead.
Y'all want to chime in?
Yeah, I mean, all of what Dawn said, it's, I think we're in a time right now where there's a lot of grayness, right? We don't know exactly a cut and dry, you know, how to maybe trust these universities, and you talk about transparency. I do think that's an important part, where if we're gonna start, you know, recruiting these kids with NIL deals, like, the money needs to be there. There was an example that happened down in Florida recently with that, the 5-star recruit. That did not turn out to be what he expected, and he left.
It's about protecting the kids too.
That is my biggest thing. Like, I don't have kids, but I have been around athletics for 16 years. I have covered kids from high school all the way to the pros. Like, everybody has a story. Everybody has had to work hard to get someplace. And especially when you're that young and impressionable, you have to make sure you're taking care of those kids, especially these high school kids that are now navigating all new waters when it comes to athletics, whether it be basketball, baseball, football. We're all dealing with the NIL now and all those different sports. And so I do think that it will even out, but I think that you're going to have the NCAA, all these universities take an aggressive step forward and saying, this is what we need to do. These are the things we've got to lay out, and we've got to all come to terms on this. Because right now, I just feel like it's everybody doing their own thing, and so it's very hard to create rules. Exactly. But yeah, I mean, I went to Washington State. It's a smaller Pac-12 school. It is a Big 5 conference, but at the same time, I know that we're working on a Cougar Collective up there just to find ways to keep kids. We had a ton of transfers that transferred out, and that is a Power 5 program. But it doesn't matter because it's not one of the big ones. So I understand, and it's whatever you can do as a family and alumni base to, you know, create a culture here, which you guys are doing not only with the football program, but when you have success with all these other programs, softball, baseball, basketball, that is something where kids see that success in other programs and they're like, dang, I want to go to MTSU because all of the athletics programs are good.
Jill, you would have had a huge NIL deal in East Carolina. But as a former student athlete, how do you look at it?
There was a dessert pastry place in Greenville, and I'm pretty sure back in the day they would have definitely gave me a good deal. Maybe I got a free cookie or a slice of cake for every
But you would have been
base
all
hit.
about that, right?
I absolutely would
I
have.
would have.
I
I'm like, give
absolutely
me a
would have.
sandwich, free sandwich a week, I'm in.
Yeah, no, I joke about that with my former teammates all the time. It's a new day and age, and Chip, circling back to one of your other points, my challenge as a sportscaster is, how do I inform my viewers that are watching the newscast of really this dark, scary monster that is this NIL and this world that a lot of the moms and dads that are watching don't have any clue about. It's kind of difficult. I think we're all knowledgeable in it because we are deep in the sports world and we talk about it every day, deal with it every day. My challenge is, how can I communicate this new brave world with these moms and dads who have young kids, whose kids are most likely in youth sports, going to consider playing collegiate athletics. There's so many ins and outs of it, not all of it pretty. We hear some of the good stories, and unfortunately, I think we're starting to hear some of the horror stories. And I hate for the examples of us all learning in a sports world to come from mistakes. So the challenge for me right now, how can I educate my viewers, moms and dads, hey, this is what's going on over at University of Tennessee. Hey, this is what's going on. Here are the latest recruits for MTSU. But also making sure I'm as honest as possible about, hey, we got to these are programs navigating through uncharted waters. Best way to describe it.
Stock likes to say you can achieve all your dreams at Middle Tennessee, and a couple of guys this week who are going to achieve their dreams and some paychecks. Eric Swan from the baseball team went in the 4th round to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Jaden Ham in the 5th round to the Tigers. So give them a round of applause. Coach Jeremiah, congratulations on you guys. It gives us an opportunity to kind of change gears a little bit. And Coach, you've got a reshaping Conference USA with a creative schedule with midweek games. I know there's some excitement to that, but there's some concerns as well, because for the first time ever, you've got 3 games in a row that have less than 7 days of preparation, and that's going to be a challenge among the excitement that's part of it.
Yeah, and spent a lot of time this spring and really when they announced the schedule of trying to plan and prepare for it, because I've never done it. Nobody on our staff has ever been part of it. And the thing I worry the most about, and you guys know that you play 2 games in 6 days, the NFL, you know, how those players complain about playing on a Sunday to a Thursday. There's just not enough time to recover. So you play 2 and 6, 3 and 12, I think it is, 4 and 18, 5 and 25. That the scary part to me is, you know, how these guys are going to recover. And if you sprain an ankle in a game, you know, you got 6-7 days that you got a chance to get back for the next game. You know, you may miss it, you know, and be ready for the next one. But now, you sprain an ankle, something happens, you got a chance to miss 2 or 3 games just because there's not enough time in between to recover. So you're going to be limited on how much you install during the course of the week, because you've got, you know, 4 days between, you know, Western Kentucky and Jacksonville State, and one of those days has to be a day off. You know, so there's not a lot of time in there. You know, you're going to have to limit your installs and your practice, how you practice, how physical those practices can be. There's so much that goes into this other than, yeah, fired up playing a midweek game on ESPNU, and Dawn's going to be on the sideline and all that. But, you know, there's a lot of things that you have to navigate that put a lot of time and thought into.
Chris, the conference has a new look with Liberty, Jacksonville State, Sam Houston, and New Mexico State coming in. You know, it's going to work better for some sports than others. Kennesaw State will be coming in a year from now. And you keep your finger on the pulse of this all the time. Is this over yet?
Oh, no way. I mean, somebody mentioned San Diego State, and they're kind of in limbo. And kind of what's
USA,
happening.
So
Yeah, what's happening out west, and so there's still some more chips to be played in this whole equation. So it's not over. Everything's kind of temporary. I think that July 1 is usually the marker because most of the league contracts end on July 30th, and most of them you have to give like 18 months notice, or there's some severe financial penalties kind of that are baked into that. So whether those penalties are worth absorbing or you think you can negotiate your way through those, we'll see kind of what happens out west. But I fully expect the Pac-12 to expand. The Big 12 will do something as well, and so there will be a domino effect after that.
yeah. Stock, with all what we've talked about being said, you have an 85-man roster with 105 when it comes to your walk-ons. After all has been said and done, since we finished up in Hawaii with the bowl game, with folks, you had a couple of guys leave, you've got some folks coming in, some of them we haven't even heard about yet. How are you feeling about your roster? Because you're, 3 or 4 weeks really getting into it?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
I like our team right now, Chip. And like I said, we had a really good winter workout. We had a really good spring. We're probably going into this summer, when we started back June 4th, we went into the summer healthier than we did last year. We had so many guys that had postseason surgeries last year that weren't cleared until, August of last year. And then this year, we only had, a couple handfuls. So we went into the summer really, really healthy. Like I said, we probably brought in 8 or 9 new guys that weren't here in the spring, not counting the high school kids we signed. So I like where we're at right now. I like our team. I like the leadership of our team. We still have to develop more, and we've got to bring more of that on because your better teams, as all of you guys know, your better teams are, the better leadership your team has, the better team you're going to be when it's more player-led than coach-led. So, but I like our team. They got a wonderful attitude. They work extremely hard so far this summer. They get a week and a half to go. They'll get a half a week off, and then we'll come back, July 31st, ready to roll.
So tonight we have a lot of media members here. We got about 15 minutes left before Stock has to do a live shot on Channel 5. My man Bob Kuzak is here. Saw him just a minute ago show up, the veteran of sports photographers in Nashville. Okay, Jill, you ask a question. What's your number one question for Coach Stock?
Yeah, Coach, you kind of touched on it earlier. I know it's still early in the season, but out of your 18 years, what is it about this year's team that maybe could be a little different than years past? What excites you the most about this group specifically?
Probably the potential, because you never know till you get into the heat of the season and how they respond. And last year we lost to James Madison in the first game, and everybody wanted to wave the white flag and surrender and give up and all that kind of stuff and complain and da-da-da-da-da. Then you win a few games and everybody's happy again. So, but the players didn't quit. The team didn't. You ignore all that stuff on the outside. You don't listen to it, and I've always said you never judge a team until the season's over. And but I love the potential of this team. You got some really good players. You got some young players that haven't played, but I think they've got a really high ceiling. That they can get better here the rest of the summer here and then in August and have a good year. So I guess to answer your question, Jill, just the potential of it right now, and then until we get into it and see how they respond, to adversity, because adversity is going to hit. You're going to have it some point in the season, and how they respond to that. So the potential of this team.
Kayla, tee one up.
Yeah, so Coach, I love the fact and I respect you so much. You have to really love the game, love the people you're coaching, love the school you're coaching for to stay in it as long as you have and continue to have success. And so I wonder, with all the time you've spent here at MTSU, you look back at some things, and what is your biggest accomplishment to this day? And it doesn't have to be a win, but just what do you feel like when you look back to this point that you're like, wow, that's pretty impressive?
That's a really good question. I think that, sure you remember certain games, and you remember certain players, throughout it, but the thing that I'm the most proud of is the consistency that what we've done. And you guys know, everybody out there knows, you two got, whatever, lay low, man. We don't have as good of facilities as a lot of people. But these players never have said, man, I wish we had this. Why don't we have this? They don't complain. They come to work every day. I told the Titans when they came to, not recruit, but to talk to Kevin Byard, I said, you're getting a guy that knows how to practice. He knows how to compete. He knows how to work. And that's the thing that I'm proud of all these players that have come through this program, whether they're coaches now, whether they're you know, businessmen now, whether they're NFL players now, that they know how to work, they know how to, you know, they know what it takes to be successful, but just they've never complained, and to do what we've done with what we have is incredible to me, and it's incredible to everybody on the outside that is in this profession. And that's why I always say, once we get this new building built, this place is gonna take off. I mean, what we've done without, just wait till we get. And, you know, that's what I guess I'm most proud
Heck
of.
yeah, Coach.
So, Babs, you are the queen of halftime coaches interviews. What you got?
Can I do two? First one, I'll do two quick ones. First one is with Alabama and Missouri on the schedule. Do you see a little different juice in the off season, maybe, as you prepare with your guys knowing that, hey, that's right up off the bat? Is it different? I mean, you've done this for 18 years. You've had all kind of different schedules, and is there a little juice?
Yeah, Dawn, just the fact that, you know, we've opened up with, you know, Clemson, with Power 5 guys before, so we've opened up with it. But I just think the success the last 2 years, you know, and then coming off the Miami win, like, I took a group of guys, we went to a, you know, a Special Olympics kind of camp on campus a couple weeks ago, and one of the little girls in there was an Alabama fan, and she said, y'all aren't gonna beat Alabama, and our guys, you know, they all said, you watched the Miami game last year, so they feel good, they're confident, they feel good, they got a little extra swagger, a little extra juice to them, I think, you know, because of what they've accomplished the last couple of years.
And then my other quick one, I'm just curious how it all works coaching with your son, with Brent. Are there times where, because, and I'll just let you guys in, I talked to a very high-powered offensive coaching mind in the SEC, head coach, who raved about Brent Stockstill and his offensive mind and how basically he said he's an offensive genius. So I'm just curious, is there any like battles or disagreements, or how does it all work?
You know, Dawn, it's and I go back to the recruiting part when he played. You hear all the stories, don't coach your son. It never works out, da-da-da-da-da. You know, and when Brent decided to come here, you know, I told him, I said, you can win the Heisman or never come off the bench. But I don't want this, me coaching you, to affect our father-son relationship. And it didn't. And so I tell people all the time, if you ever get a chance to coach your son or coach your daughter, don't pass it up. And now to be able to coach with him I feel like I'm the luckiest guy in the world, because I get to see him, you know, to grow as a coach, and I'm able to help him on things. He's you know, you guys know me, I know him, but I'm not saying it because he's my son, but he's a very, very talented coach, and I think he's got a bright future in this profession. But, you know, he'll come in and, you know, because he's not that far removed from the locker room, and he'll, you know, and he'll say, he didn't say dad or pops, he didn't say coach, he'll come in and say, you know, you might want to think about, you know, giving him a day off, you might want to think about doing more, whatever this. So it's been I don't treat him any different, didn't treat him any different when he played, you know, and I kind of just stay out of his way and let him go, and, you know, he's doing a great job. It's something that I look forward to. You know, you watch it before the game, you know, always go down, two people, I shake his hand, I shake Tommy West's hand, and before the game, and, you know, just so, I'm just very fortunate and very lucky, to be honest with you.
Awesome. Chris, you talked about facilities. We're in the midst of a great deal of change and upgrades right there. Any news on what we're going to be seeing soon?
Well, I was hoping I could ask Coach Stock a couple questions, but I'll wait for tomorrow.
You do that every day.
Yeah, I'll wait for tomorrow. We referred to the new student athlete performance building, and they're going to put the construction fence up on Monday and start demolishing our existing weight room and take off the upper deck, so the construction in earnest
Applause.
is going to happen. And this project's been a long time in coming, but it is it's a huge project for us, and as Rick said many times, it's a game changer for us, and that's one of our missing pieces. And I think I know it's gonna impact the aesthetics of our stadium. It's going to impact our whole area of campus. And when you start thinking about what it'll do for MTSU as a whole, we have a pretty good idea what it'll do for the athletic department and what it'll do for the football program. But it'll modernize that whole corner of our campus, which in essence is the visitor center of MTSU. All the TSSAA events we host, that corner on Greenland Avenue and Middle Tennessee Boulevard is the busiest corner on our campus, one of the busiest in Murfreesboro. And to put a big structure like that, a beautiful building, will really impact that, along with our new tennis center that's going to open up in November. So we're ecstatic about it, and we've now secured some significant funding to go into phase 2, which is really kind of the renovations of the Murphy Center, and to help both of our basketball programs. And you'll see the first step of that this October when we install the new video boards in the Murphy Center and make it more fan-friendly, make it more of a basketball arena for our two programs. And once we move football and their locker room out of Murphy Center, then we'll have this enjoyment of space that we'll be able to convert. So we're excited about it. This is just the very beginning of a really significant renovation. And I just think that when you look at the population growth of our area, and you start putting that together with the potential of MTSU, and you pack some first-class facilities behind that, then that really is some uncharted waters. As soon as we become a really recruiting mecca for our sports, and that's starting to happen now in almost all of our sports, and you put those facilities behind it, that will help us recruit freshmen, and it'll also help us get those bounce back kids, maybe that 4-star that signed with another school and is seeking some playing time, or for whatever reason doesn't work out and moves back to the area. You know, that's how SMU and some of these other programs have kind of lived off that bounce back transfer. So Chip, I think that's going to have such an impact on all of our sports and on our university as a whole as well.
All right, we're going to make a little audible here and turn Coach loose to go do an interview on Channel 5. So give him a nice round of applause. We're going to go a couple more minutes here with our panel. So September 2nd will be in Tuscaloosa, then Columbia, Missouri, and then the 16th it'll be the home opener against Murray State, and then homecoming, believe it or not, a September homecoming with Colorado State coming in. One of the other reasons we have this outstanding crew, and I want to say this, I have worked games with all three of these ladies on television. I've worked with all three of them, and I just tried to keep up. That's all I did. But they're all outstanding people. Diane Turnham is back here. Coach Ensel's here. We just wrapped up the 50th anniversary of Title IX, and you all as women in athletics, we're super proud because we had a great year in women's sports. NCAA tournament for basketball, NCAA tournament for softball. Kind of give us your thoughts as women in athletics, what Title IX has meant to you and what you've seen from an overarching situation at Middle.
Opportunity. It goes back to how it was first started, how Title IX actually was originally a law just for education. It actually had nothing to do with sports, and the founders decided the very last second to put in the words "and activities." And that changed the scope of women's athletics forever. And so the first...
Two words.
Two words. There you go. And so I think one opportunity to have, whether it's as a student athlete, whether it's as a female sports broadcaster covering women's athletics, but taking it bigger picture, it's so, I think, the reward of being a sports broadcaster and getting to cover women's athletics is the fans and the viewers are getting more and more excited about women's athletics. We as broadcasters, call me out if I'm wrong, but we gravitate towards what our viewers want to watch, who the teams they want to cheer for, the programs they want to cheer for. When women's athletics does well, more fans get behind them, there's more people in the stands supporting those programs. And just in the last decade, definitely over the last several decades, but in the last decade alone, I feel like we've seen a huge increase in the support and the excitement, whether it's college softball, we see it on ESPN all the time, the Women's College World Series, basketball, of course, March Madness. There is not only a desire and a huge passion for these sports, but it's growing. And MTSU's women's athletics, specifically, obviously, the amazing year with both softball and the women's basketball team, that is proof of not only how far women's athletics has come, but also how far it can also continue to go.
Kayla, what does it mean to you to see it expanding?
Man, it's awesome. I didn't play college athletics, but I've done this business for a long time, right? And in a lot of ways, I consider myself an athlete just the way that I've had to maneuver through this business. And it's a battle sometimes to get the respect as hard as you work. Sometimes it's like, hey, look, I'm doing the work too. And I feel like women's sports is just exploding. And it's so awesome to see. And to see it like right here in our own backyard, like to see the success of the women's basketball program, softball just giving it their all, and so much excitement this past season where people are tuning into these games. They're on Twitter, and it's just like you're seeing trends, right? And it's female sports. I think that it's headed in the right direction because it's not just, oh, we want to pump up female sports. No, it's people really are locking in, they're tuning in to watch these women compete because they're giving it their all. And these games, I mean, this is just my opinion, some of these games are better than the men's games in the last, with the World Series, the College World Series, and the women's, NCAA games that we've seen in the past couple of years. So I think it's trending in the right direction. It makes me so excited as a woman broadcaster because I'm covering more and more of it because that's what our viewers want to see too. So I think it's important for us to still continue to push that and to continue our coverage of that and give these ladies credit because they're working just as hard, but it's trending in the real right direction.
Dawn, you've seen big changes since you played.
Oh, yeah. Huge. Actually, you were talking about the College World Series. I wrote down the numbers. So the Women's College World Series exceeded viewership of the Men's College World Series from 2021 to 2022. So I know, I was like, oh, I gotta write that down for Jill. She's all about that.
That is until Coach Myers gets his team there, right?
That's right, yes. Yes, and then last year's title game was like over 1.74 million is what watched. But basketball was interesting, and Coach Insel, you'll remember this, but back in 1995, that Tennessee-UConn game on CBS, 7.4 million viewers, and that was like, back then it was, you watched that. Now you watch everything, or you watch the entire women's tournament. I think that's the difference. So you look at that number, Iowa LSU, 9.92 million viewers, but it peaked at 12.6 million. So
wow.
You can see the growth there, whereas back in the day, it was maybe a couple programs that you paid attention to, and nowadays I feel like the big difference is there's a lot of programs that you now pay attention to, and obviously Coach Insel has done a great job of growing this game in this state, that's for sure.
Chris?
And then, I was just going to say Title IX from my standpoint, it allowed me to pay for my education. It taught me time management. It taught me how to work hard. It taught me how to be persistent, all of those things. And without it, I certainly wouldn't be as where I am in this business now, so.
We have some prizes to give away, but Chris, you have the final word.
Yeah, I just, that Iowa LSU game did better than many NBA playoff games, just for context. So women's basketball is a big deal. And I just think it's important for women to have strong role models. I've got 2 daughters myself that both swam collegiately. And Don, I never told you this, but I used to point to the TV like when you're on and say, there's an example of a strong woman. And that's a good person to role model off of. So they did that. We used you as a prime example of somebody that really is working hard and doing things right. So I just think that's important across the board for people to have role models they can look up to. And that's why Title IX is so important.
Folks, have you had a good time tonight? Appreciate you all coming. We're going to be in Smyrna tomorrow. Franklin on Thursday at lunch. Manchester Thursday after work. Friday in Murfreesboro. Next Tuesday night we'll be down in Shelbyville at Riverbend Country Club. And I think Chelsea's got some giveaways here. We're going to let our ladies pull some names for us.
Okay,
Jill,
here we
draw.
go. See, this one right here. Zeke Anderson.
Another former player.
Yeah, exactly. They said I need to get my NIL money back in today. I'm going to cash in now.
All right, another one. Same one. Same one.
Same gift, okay, here we go. I'm always fearful of names, like, us sports, like what name, I'm always gonna get
Hey, you all have to talk about all the hockey players. So,
Okay, ladies, yes.
ladies, yes.
Where it goes.
You might be able to fill your beer wine glasses up right over there.
I love the one name, Christine.
All right.
I like that.
Is that all of them?
That's all of them.
All right. Folks, thanks again. Stick around. Coach Stock will be back up. And again, you got a lot of athletic staff members here, too. If you got questions, got basketball questions, if you press Coach Insel and Coach McDevitt, they might tell you about some fun things that are going to be on their schedules. Same with baseball, all that. But thanks a lot for coming. We'll see you tomorrow in Smyrna. And be loud, be proud, and be blue.